all wet. It's rainy as you can hear. Come on, baby. Spin. Two heads, one tail, yang yin. Two tails, one head, yang yang. Three tails, old yin. Two tails, one head, yang yang. Two tails, one head, yang yang. Two tails, one head, yang yang. We'll start by reading a selection from The Secret of the Golden Flower, the classic Chinese book of life, a lay manual of Buddhist and Taoist methods for clarifying the mind. This text describes a number of helpful meditation techniques, but its central method goes deeper than meditation, getting to the root source of awareness itself. This practical guide was hailed by C.G. Jung as a link between the insights of the East and his own psychological theory. This section is 1, the celestial mind. Naturalness is called the way. The way has no name or form. It is just the essence, just the primal spirit. Essence and life are invisible, so they are associated with sky and light. Sky and light are invisible, so they are associated with the two eyes. Since ancient times, those who realized spiritual immortality all communicated their teaching verbally, transmitting it from individual to individual. Taishang appeared magically to Dong Hao, and the way was handed on through a succession to Yan, then to the southern and northern schools of complete reality, which can be considered its full flourishing. That movement flourished in the sense that there were a great many who followed it, yet it declined in the sense that its mental communication deteriorated. This has continued up to the present day, when it is extremely confused and extremely degenerate. When an extreme is reached, there is a reversion. Therefore, there was a certain Master Su who extended his kindness to liberate all, especially setting up the teaching of this special transmission outside of doctrine. For those who heard, it was a rare opportunity. Those who accepted it formed a religious association in their time. Everyone should respectfully understand the heart of Master Su. First, establish a firm foothold in daily activities within society. Only then can you cultivate reality and understand essence. In obedience to a directive, I am acting as a guide to liberation. Now I am bringing to light the source message of the golden flower of absolute unity. After that, I will explain in detail. The absolute unity refers to what cannot be surpassed. There are very many alchemical teachings, but all of them make temporary use of effort to arrive at effortlessness. They are not teachings of total transcendence and direct penetration. The doctrine I transmit directly brings up working with essence and does not fall into a secondary method. That is the best thing about it. The golden flower is light. What color is light? It is symbolized by the golden flower, which in Chinese characters also conceals the words one light within. This is the absolutely unified real energy of celestial immortals. This is what is meant by the saying, "The lead in the homeland of water is just one flavor." The whole work of turning the light around uses the method of reversal. The beauties of the highest heavens and the marvels of the sublimest realms are all within the heart. This is where the perfectly open and aware spirit concentrates. Confucians call it the open center, Buddhists call it the pedestal of awareness, Taoists call it the ancestral earth, the yellow court, the mysterious pass, the primal opening. The celestial mind is like a house. The light is the master of the house. Therefore, once you turn the light around, the energies throughout the body all rise. Just turn the light around. This is the unexcelled sublime truth. The light is easily stirred and hard to stabilize. When you have turned it around for a long time, the light crystallizes. This is the natural spiritual body, and it steadies the spirit above the nine skies. This is what is referred to in the Mind Seal scripture as silently paying court and soaring upward. The golden flower is the same thing as the gold pill. The transmutations of spiritual illumination are all guided by mind. 2. The original spirit and the conscious spirit. From the point of view of the universe, people are like mayflies. But from the point of view of the way, even the universe is as an evanescent reflection. Only the true essence of the original spirit transcends the primal organization and is above it. Vitality and energy degenerate along with the universe, but the original spirit is still there. This is the infinite. The production of the universe all derives from this. If learners can just preserve the original spirit, they live transcendentally outside of yin and yang. They are not within the three realms. This is possible only by seeing essence. This is what is called the original face. What is most wondrous is when the light has crystallized in a spiritual body, gradually becoming consciously effective, and is on the verge of moving into action. This is the secret that has not been transmitted in 1,000 ages. The conscious mind is like a violent general of a strong fiefdom, controlling things from a distance until the sword is turned around. Now steadily keep to the chamber of the origin, turning the light around to look back. And this is like having a heroic leader on top with great ministers helping. Once the inner government is orderly, the strong and violent naturally become tame. The highest secrets of alchemy are the water of vitality, the fire of spirit, and the earth of attention. The water of vitality is the energy of the primal real unity. The fire of spirit is illumination. The earth of attention is the chamber of the center, the celestial mind. The fire of spirit is the function. The earth of attention is the substance. The water of vitality is the foundation. People create the body by attention. The body is not just the physical body, because there's a lower soul therein. The lower soul functions in association with consciousness, and consciousness develops based on the lower soul. The lower soul is dim. It is the substance of consciousness. If consciousness is not interrupted, transformation and transformation of the lower soul go on endlessly from lifetime to lifetime, generation to generation. Then there is the higher soul, which is where the spirit is concealed. The higher soul resides in the eyes during the day and lodges in the liver at night. When it resides in the eyes, it sees. When it lodges in the liver, it dreams. Dreams are the roaming of the spirit. It traverses the 9 heavens and 9 earths in an instant. If you are dull and depressed on awakening, that is a sign of clinging to the body, which means clinging to the lower soul. So turning the light around is a means of refining the higher soul, which is a means of preserving the spirit, which is a means of controlling the lower soul, which is a means of interrupting consciousness. The ancients' method of transcending the world, refining away the dregs of darkness to restore pure light, is just a matter of dissolving the lower soul and making the higher soul whole. Turning the light around is the secret of dissolving darkness and controlling the lower soul. There's no exercise to restore the creative, only the secret of turning the light around. The light itself is the creative. To turn it around is to restore it. Just persist in this method, and naturally the water of vitality will be full. The fire of spirit will ignite, the earth of attention will stabilize, and thus the embryo of sagehood can be solidified. A dung beetle rolls a pill of dung from which life emerges by the pure effort of concentration of spirit. If life can come even from a dung ball, how could it not be possible to produce a body by concentrating the spirit on where the celestial mind rests when the embryo leaves the shell? Once the true nature of unified awareness has fallen into the chamber of the creative, it divides into higher and lower souls. The higher soul is in the celestial mind, this is yang, energy that is light and clear. This is obtained from cosmic space and has the same form as the original beginning. The lower soul is yin, energy that is dense and opaque. This sticks to the ordinary mind that has form. The higher soul likes life, the lower soul looks toward death. All lust affecting the temperament is the doing of the lower soul. This is what consciousness is. After death, it feeds on blood. In life, it suffers greatly. This is darkness returning to darkness by a coming together of kind. If learners refine the dark lower soul completely, then it will be pure light. 3. Turning the light around and keeping to the center. Where did the term turning the light around begin? It began with the adept Wenshi. When the light is turned around, the energies of heaven and earth, yin and yang, all congeal. This is what is called refined thought, pure energy, or pure thought. When you first put this technique into practice, there is seemingly non-being within being. Eventually, when the work is accomplished, and there is a body beyond your body, there is seemingly being within non-being. Only after 100 days of concentrated work is the light real. Only then is it the fire of spirit. After 100 days, the light is spontaneous. A point of true positive energy suddenly produces a pearl, just as an embryo forms from the intercourse of a man and a woman. Then you should attend it calmly and quietly. The turning around of the light is the firing process. In the original creation, there is positive light, which is the ruling director. In the material world, it is the sun. In human beings, it is the eyes. Nothing is worse than to have a running leakage of spirit and consciousness. This is conformity, so the way of the golden flower is accomplished completely through the method of reversal. Turning the light around is not turning around the light of one body, but turning around the very energy of creation. It is not stopping random imagination only temporarily. It is truly emptying routine compulsion for all time. Therefore, each breath corresponds to 1 year of a human time, and each breath corresponds to a century in the various pathways of the long night of ignorance. Usually people wind up pursuing objects and come to age in conformity with life, never once looking back. When their positive energy fades and disappears, this is the netherworld. Therefore, the heroic March scripture says, pure thought is flight, pure emotion is fall. When students have little thought and much emotion, they sink into low ways. Just observe clearly, and when your breath grows quiet, you then become accurately aware. This is application of the method of reversal. This is what is meant in the yin convergent classic when it says, "The mechanism is in the eyes," and the plain questions of the Yellow Emperor when it says, "The light rays of the human body all flow upward into the aperture of space." If you get this, long life is herein, and so is transcendence of life. This is a practice that pervades the three teachings. The light is neither inside nor outside the self. Mountains, rivers, sun, moon, and the whole earth are all this light. So it is not only in the self. All the operations of intelligence, knowledge, and wisdom are also this light, so it is not outside the self. The light of heaven and earth fills the universe. The light of one individual also naturally extends through the heavens and covers the earth. Therefore, once you turn the light around, everything in the world is turned around. The light rays are concentrated upward into the eyes. This is the great key of the human body. You should reflect on this. If you do not sit quietly each day, this light flows and whirls, stopping who knows where. If you can sit quietly for a while, all time, then 1,000 ages, 1,000 lifetimes, is penetrated from this. All phenomena revert to stillness. Truly inconceivable is this sublime truth. Nevertheless, the actual practice goes from shallow to deep, from crude to fine. Throughout, it is best to be consistent. The practice is one from beginning to end, but its quality during the process can be known only by oneself. Nevertheless, it is necessary to wind up at the point where heaven is open, earth is broad, and all things are just as they are. For only this can be considered attainment. What has been communicated through successive sages is not beyond reversed gazing. Confucians call it reaching toward knowledge. Buddhists call it observing mind. Taoists call it inner observation. The essential teaching is summarized above. As for the rest, matters of entering and exiting stillness, the prelude and the aftermath, one should use the book Small Stopping and Seeing for a touchstone. The words focus on the center are most sublime. The center is omnipresent. The whole universe is within it. This indicates the mechanism of creation. You focus on this to enter the gate. That is all. To focus means to focus on this as a hint, not to become rigidly fixated. The meaning of the word focus has life to it. It is very subtle. The terms stopping and seeing basically cannot be separated. They mean concentration and insight. Hereafter, whenever thoughts arise, you don't need to sit still as before. You should investigate this thought. Where is it? Where does it come from? Where does it disappear? Push this inquiry on and on, over and over, until you realize it cannot be grasped. Then you will see where the thought arises. You don't need to seek out the point of arising anymore. Having looked for my mind, I realize it cannot be grasped. I have pacified your mind for you. This is correct seeing. Whatever is contrary to this is false seeing. Once you reach this ungraspability, then as before, you continuously practice stopping and continue it by seeing. Practice seeing and continue it by stopping. This is twin cultivation of stopping and seeing. This is turning the light around. The turning around is stopping. The light is seeing. Stopping without seeing is called turning around without light. Seeing without stopping is called having light without turning it around. Remember this. Seven, the living method of turning the light around. As you go along practicing turning the light around, you need not give up your normal occupation. An ancient said, when matters come up, one should respond. When things come up, one should discern. If you manage affairs with accurate mindfulness, then the light is not overcome by things. So it will do to repeat this formless turning around of the light time and again. If you can look back again and again into the source of mind, whatever you are doing, not sticking to any image of person or self at all, then this is turning the light around wherever you are. This is the finest practice. In the early morning, if you can clear all objects from your mind and sit quietly for 1 or 2 hours, that is best. Whenever you are engaged in work or dealing with people, just use this looking back technique, and there will be no interruption. If you practice in this way for 2 or 3 months, the realized ones in heaven will surely come to attest to your experience. And 11. The intercourse of water and fire. Whenever you leak vital spirit, being stirred and interacting with beings, that is all fire. Whenever you gather back spirit's consciousness and quiet it down to steep in the center, that is all water. When the senses run outward, that is fire. When the senses turn around inward, that is water. The one yin inside the fire trigram concentrates on pursuing sense experience, while the one yang inside the water trigram concentrates on reversing and withdrawing the senses themselves. Water and fire are yin and yang. Yin and yang are essence and life. Essence and life are body and mind. Body and mind are spirit and energy. Once you withdraw to rest your vital spirit and are not influenced by objects, then this is true intercourse, as of course when you sit in profound silence. Our bottom trigram of our primary hexagram will be read as broken, solid, broken, which is the trigram Con, water. Con is deep water, flowing and formless. He is the complement of Li, dark where Li is bright, unconscious to her sharp lucidity, and represents a more fluid, intuitive, and emotional way of perceiving. This is danger, exposure, and solitude, and the need to respond with courageous self-reliance when confronted by the haunting unknown. Water is the middle sun, situated in the north, associated with midwinter and midnight. Our top trigram of our primary hexagram and our secondary hexagram, since there are no changing lines in it, will be read as solid, 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 or whole, whole, whole. This is the trigram Kyan, heaven. Kyan is superhuman cosmic law. Enduring, he determines the nature and development of all things, from the movement of the stars to the cycle of the seasons, to causing each individual seed to grow into its own kind of plant. Heaven is creativity in its pure form, the force that drives change, and what endures within it. He confronts us with truth and what it demands, both as an absolute law of nature and as the challenge of individual calling, experienced as an inner law. He is both the awareness of what to do and how to be, and also the power to act on it. Heaven is Father, found in the northwest, the realm between autumn and winter, when the buds set and the seeds fall to earth. So, to get our first or primary hexagram, we will have Kyan, heaven, above, Con, water, which will give us hexagram 6. Once our third line, which is an old yin, transforms to its opposite as a young yang, Our bottom trigram will be read as broken, solid, solid, or open, whole, whole, I believe. That's how they call it. Anyway, broken, solid, solid is the trigram Xun, wind or wood. Xun is both wind and living plants, whatever penetrates, spreads, and grows, shaping itself to the space available or shaping that space to its own nature. She is responsive flexibility, sensitively improvising and adapting. Like the wind, she can always find a way through because she never creates any resistance, and so her influence is subtle and gradual, but far-reaching. In the family of trigrams, Xun is the eldest daughter, gentle and submissive. She belongs to the southeast and to late spring and early summer. So, Kyan, heaven above Xun, wind or wood, gives us a supporting hexagram of 44. To understand the question we bring to the I Ching, that question having the general context of how can I act in creative relation with the spirits or forces shaping this moment of time. If we want to understand the answer to that question, we'll need to understand how the parts of our reading work together. The key to understanding a reading is to know your way around its main components, how they fit together, and the different roles they play. If your reading includes changing lines, then you will need to understand primary hexagram, relating hexagram, and changing lines together. The two hexagrams in conversation with one another map out your whole answer. The primary hexagram shows you quite directly what your answer involves. The relating hexagram generally describes what the answer is about for you. It sets the primary hexagram in a broader context, an influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. If the two hexagrams map out a landscape for you, then the changing lines stick a pin in that map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They are the immediate answer to your question. As the most specific, focused part of a reading, their message always takes precedence over all other elements. For example, the primary hexagram might describe a reassuringly secure situation, but a changing line could warn how insecure your position is within it. So we will begin reading from the Taoist I Ching, written by I-ming in 1796 as a Taoist adept. Thomas clearly has translated it, and in the beginning there are succinct definitions of each hexagram that will start us out. So hexagram 6 in the Taoist I Ching is defined as contention. Depending on strength because of danger, causing danger by depending on strength, conflict due to imbalance. And then our supporting hexagram 44 is titled Meeting, warding off negative influences, preserving the positive. Starting out, we will read from the text section of this, and it will include our changing line, which is our most focused part of our reading, as we found out earlier. Then we'll move to the back of the book, which has more commentary by I-ming, and it does not contain the changing line in it, so we'll have to remember that changing line is our most focused part of the reading, putting a pin in the map saying you are here, or here are some places you may find yourself. Take precedence over all other elements. So our primary hexagram, Contention, hexagram 6. Contention, there is blockage of truth. Caution and moderation lead to good results. Finality leads to bad results. It is beneficial to see a great person, not beneficial to cross a great river. Explanation. Contention means contention to decide right and wrong. As for the qualities of the hexagram, inside is water, dangerous, and outside is heaven, strong. Relying on strength because of danger, and causing danger by force, both have the meaning of violation of harmony. Therefore, it is called contention. This hexagram represents the downfall of truth and the contest for victory. It follows on the previous hexagram, darkness. In darkness, there is danger, yet one is able to stop, whereby to effect progress of yin, of the acquired temperament. People receive the energy of the temporarily conditioned yin and yang and 5 elements, which forms their body. Those who have received excessive yin energy are wily, while those who have received excessive yang energy are impetuous. Those whose yin and yang energies are mixed up are both wily and impetuous. People are such because of their temperaments. Only great sages can change their temperaments, while lesser people are bound by their temperaments. When they are run afoul of, the poison in their negative side acts, and they get excited. They contest for victory, eager for power. They plot and scheme to deprive others and benefit themselves. All such things that deviate from harmony and lose balance. Arguments, battles of wit, issues of right and wrong are all called contention. People who practice the Tao need to know that the nature of the temperament is most harmful. To practice the principles of the Tao in the context of the events of the world, first erase wile and impetuosity at one stroke. Be inwardly strong, but not outwardly aggressive. Then there may be danger in the environment, but there will be no danger in the heart. In this way, one may gradually transmute the temperament and not remain in the clamor of the realm of right and wrong. However, as long as one is still in the world, there is still the possibility of being afflicted by troubles and difficulties. Even if you are not wily yourself, people can hurt you by their craft. Even if you are not impetuous yourself, people can fool you by what they do. This hurts your self-confidence without reason, and even though you have nothing to be ashamed of, you suffer frustration because of it, and reach an impasse. When matters get to where vindication is necessary, rather than desire justification outwardly, it is better to contend with yourself inwardly. Therefore the text says, contention, there is blockage of truth. Caution and moderation lead to good results. If you can be cautious and moderate, wrong thoughts will stop and right thought will arise. The impasse can be penetrated, and wile can be changed. Victory seeking can be eliminated. Otherwise, if you cannot be cautious and moderate, you will lose out in an important matter because of a little anger. Impetuosity will appear outwardly, while guile will arise inwardly. Without having won others, you will have already hurt yourself. If you are not careful in the beginning, the end will surely be bad. However, there are also situations where caution, moderation, and self-struggle do not clear the matter up, and it is necessary to appeal to another, depending on someone to distinguish right and wrong. To distinguish right and wrong, it is beneficial to see a great person. If you do not see a great person, you will not be helped. A great person is one who corrects both self and others, who is able to restrain people's excesses and encourage their virtues, able to solve people's doubts and develop their intelligence. It is most beneficial to see such a person. Otherwise, being unable to exercise caution and moderation so as to change your own temperament, and also unable to see a great person to expand your perception, relying on your own craft alone, contesting for victory, eager for power, overthrowing truth and following falsehood, contending over what should not be contended about, you will call disaster on yourself. Therefore, it is not beneficial to cross a great river. By caution and moderation, you can see a great person. Not being cautious or moderate is crossing a great river. Caution and moderation lead to good results. Being incautious and immoderate lead to bad results. Should not those who practice the Tao contend with themselves to begin with? And our supporting hexagram, or secondary hexagram, is 44 meeting. It puts our primary hexagram in a broader context, an influence, a direction of travel, shows what the primary hexagram means for us. Meeting, the woman is strong, don't get married. Explanation, meeting means encounter, unexpected encounter. In the body of the hexagram, there is one yin, which enters under 5 yangs. 5 yangs meet one yin, so it is called meeting. This hexagram represents warding off mundanity and preserving celestial energy. It follows on the previous hexagram, increase. Increase means augmenting insufficient celestial energy. To augment what is insufficient means adding from 1 yang until there are 6 yangs, so that finally positive celestial yang is pure and complete. However, when yang culminates, yin is inevitable. One yin surreptitiously arises and the yang energy is damaged. This is why the text says, meeting, the woman is strong. However, the inevitability of yin when yang culminates is the path of the temporal, going along with creation. If one can borrow the earthly to complete the celestial, the sage's science of reverse operation to get back to the primordial, and, as in the 2nd and 5th lines of this hexagram, have strength and balance, attaining the power to adapt to changes, having flexibility within firmness and firmness within flexibility, one can thereby go in and out of yin and yang without being constrained by yin and yang. Using yin without being used by yin is like meeting a woman but not marrying her. Though earthly yin energy be strong, after all it will obey celestial yang energy. Not only will the yang energy not be damaged, the yin energy will gradually sublimate. This is why the work of warding off mundanity is valued. Now back to our primary hexagram, Contention 6, to read changing line 3, which has the general context of an emerging identity facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. This changing line is our most focused part of our reading. We will read it through James Dekorne's website as well, who synthesizes several commentaries on the I-ming, and then also in Hilary Barrett after that. But here in the Taoist I-ming, this is our most focused part. Puts a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. Changing line 3 of hexagram 6, Contention, our primary hexagram. Living on past virtues, rectitude in danger will turn out well. If working in government, do not do anything. Explanation. Being weak and not daring to contend to begin with, one therefore lives on past virtues. Living on past virtues, keeping to yourself in danger, being careful and prudent, not causing contention and having no contention yourself, ultimately you can finish well. However, Once in the midst of contention, even if you don't contend, others will contend. Then you should rely on the high-minded and wise to distinguish right and wrong. When the matter is clear, then stop. Therefore, in this case, if you are involved in government, you do not do anything on your own initiative. This is the weak being able to follow the strong and not producing contention. Now, getting to the commentary section for both Hexagram 6 and 44. Before we leave the Taoist I Ching. In the back, he calls it contention as well. Hexagram 6, our primary hexagram, heaven above, water below. When heaven and water go in different directions, there is contention. Superior people plan in the beginning when they do things. Contention means argument over right and wrong. Above is heaven, below is water. Heaven is most high, water is most low. So heaven and water go in different directions and do not meet. This is the image of contention. What superior people see in this is that aggressiveness and guile, competitiveness and desire for power are the beginnings of beckoning disaster in business and social relations. If one is not careful, one hurts others and damages oneself. Therefore, superior people plan in the beginning when they do things. They do not contend with other people, they contend with themselves. Doing things does not mean one particular action or deed, but all daily activities, practice of the Tao, and establishment of inner character. If one does not plan in the beginning when doing things, one's perception of principles will not be clear, with the result that action will not be appropriate. Being temperamental or impetuous, being unbalanced in action, is accompanied by danger. Therefore, one should plan in the beginning, doing what is to be done, avoiding what is not to be done, being careful in the beginning so as to be able to complete the affair in the end. Doing things means strong action. Planning in the beginning means preventing danger. When one acts after planning and is not careless in action, there is nothing in the world that cannot be done, nothing in the world that cannot be accomplished. Impetuous action is aberrant action. To act dangerously is to beckon danger. In doing things, if one can plan in the beginning, the human mentality will gradually depart and the temperament will gradually sublimate. Joining oneself to others, looking upon others and oneself as the same, there will be no discordant action. In 44, meeting. Secondary hexagram puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence of travel, shows what the primary hexagram means for us. Heaven above, wind below. There is wind under heaven, meeting. Thus do rulers announce their directives to the four quarters. Meeting is getting together. Above is heaven, below is wind. There is wind under heaven. Heaven creates myriad beings, but cannot stir them. It is with the blowing of the wind that myriad beings stir. Thus heaven gets together with myriad beings through the agency of the wind. This is the image of meeting. What rulers see in this is that just as heaven and myriad beings are far apart and cannot easily get together, but with the blowing of the wind, those who have not gotten together do meet, in the same way, rulers are far apart from their subjects and cannot easily get together. But with the announcement of directives, those who have not met can in fact meet. Therefore, they give out directives for the education and guidance of the people, announcing them to the four quarters. The four quarters are distant, and the local customs are not the same. How can everyone be taught personally? But when rulers give out directives, then everyone follows their direction, and those far and near are affected. This is like the wind under heaven, reaching everywhere, getting into everything. The ruler is heaven, the directive is the wind, Where the wind reaches, things stir. Where the directive reaches, the people are guided. The way sages teach people is also like this. Just as rulers have directives that they announce to the four quarters, sages have classic writings that they use to teach later generations. They leave classic writings in the world for later generations, and students who hear them are stirred. Those who read them are inspired. Even 100 generations later, people are roused and come face to face with the sages. The influence of the sages does not extend only to the four quarters of their own time. When rulers and sages love all beings and are in sensitive contact with all beings, they are upholding the practice of heaven. Now, to get a little bit more in depth with James Dekorne, who is a practitioner of the Tao himself and has synthesized several commentaries all together in one place. Conveniently, I've left links to his site and the 2 hexagrams we got in the description box below. He calls hexagram 6 stress. Other titles might be conflict, the symbol of contention, strife, litigation, quarreling, arguing, lawsuit. A quote from D.F. Hook. It is important to mind one step at the very beginning, then things will have a chance to work out all right. Judgment, leg. Stress indicates that despite sincere motivations, one still meets with opposition and obstruction. Maintain an apprehensive caution. To prosecute the contention to the bitter end will produce evil results. It is advantageous to see the great man. It is not advantageous to cross the great stream. Wilhelm/Baines, conflict. You are sincere and are being obstructed. A cautious halt halfway brings good fortune. Going through to the end brings misfortune. It furthers one to see the great man. It does not further one to cross the great water. Blowfold, conflict. Confidence accompanied by obstacles. With care, affairs can be made to prosper in their middle course, but the final outcome will be disaster. It is advantageous to visit a great man, but not to cross the great river or sea. In general, this hexagram indicates that we have little chance of success in any conflict, dispute, or lawsuit in which we are now engaged, and that retreat is the best policy. Unless line 1 or 5 is a moving line, in which case the position is more hopeful. Our moving line is line 3, so. We can profit from the advice of someone truly wise, but a journey of any kind at this time would be disastrous. Lu, conflict. You have sincerity even though obstructed. Stop halfway. Good fortune. Follow to the end. Misfortune. It is of benefit to see a great man, but not to cross the great water. Ritzema/Karcher, arguing, possessing conformity, blocking awe, centering significant, completing pitfall, harvesting, visualizing great people, not harvesting, wading the great river. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of a dispute. It emphasizes that actively expressing your claims and objections is the adequate way to handle it. To be in accord with the time, you are told to argue. Later, he brings up the concept that Ritzema/Karcher are kind of in conflict with the other general scope of people's translations of this, but we'll see that here. And then in the image, Blowfold, this hexagram symbolizes sky and water in opposition. The superior man does not embark upon any affair until he has carefully planned the start. And then jumping into the commentary, Confucius/Leg, the coming together of strength and peril gives the idea of stress. A dynamic line in the central place in the lower trigram shows how there will be a good fortune if one maintains apprehensive caution. But because contention should not be taken to extremes, there will be evil if one prosecutes his contention to the bitter end. The great man sets a value on the due mean. If one attempts to cross the great stream, he finds himself in an abyss. Leg. The upper trigram of strength here controls the lower trigram of peril, which is trying to attack it. Or it may also be seen as someone in a perilous situation contending with strong outside forces. The image is of contention and strife. The whole sincere yang line in the middle of the trigram of peril gives a character to the whole figure. An individual so represented will be very cautious and have good fortune. But since contention is bad, even a sincere individual must fail if he pursues it to the bitter end. The fifth line represents the great man, whose agency is sure to be good. His decision in any matter of contention will be correct. The sixth line is also dynamic, but his action is likely to be too rash for a great enterprise, hence the warning about not attempting to cross the great stream. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. Be careful. Don't attempt too much, and don't allow the situation to get out of hand. The superior man is judicious about his choices of action to ensure that the situation remains stable. The hexagram portrays a high level of tension. Wilhelm points out that the only favorable line is the ruler in the fifth place, and that all of the other lines symbolize people quarreling. It should also be noted that the lines 1 through 4 counsel either retreat from contention or remaining passively in place. Only line 5 suggests that an active struggle can have a favorable outcome, and line 6 portrays the sorry fate of those who insist on demanding their rights. If we turn the hexagram upside down, we have waiting, which suggests some subtle truths about the proper way to handle stress. A quote from Proverbs 17:19. He who has a taste for dispute has a taste for blows. The man of haughty speech courts destruction. A quote from Confucius. At deciding lawsuits, I am no better than anyone else. But what is necessary is to bring about a state of affairs in which there will be no lawsuits. Note that Ritzema/Karcher's summation of the judgment stands in stark disagreement with the general tenor of the figure. I have never received this hexagram when that interpretation has applied. That interpretation being, you were told to argue. Everywhere else showed there should be caution and not to demand your rights. 44 in a contention context. 44 is temptation, our supporting hexagram, and that puts our primary hexagram in a broader context, an influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Other titles might be coming to meet, the symbol of meeting, contact, sexual intercourse, encountering, coupling, infiltration by inferior men, adultery. Quote from D.F. Hook. Contains a definite warning about a person or situation which may appear harmless but will prove dangerous. Judgment. Leg. Temptation shows a female who's bold and strong. It will not be good to marry such a female. Wilhelm/Baines. Coming to meet. The maiden is powerful. One should not marry such a maiden. Blofeld. Contact. Women wield the power. Do not marry. At this time, marriage would be unfortunate. The husband would almost surely be henpecked. Ritzema/Karcher. Coupling. Womanhood invigorating. No availing of grasping womanhood. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of the encounter of primal energies. It emphasizes that seeing through your personal situation as the connection of objective forces is the adequate way to handle it. The image. Leg. The image of wind with the sky above it forms temptation. The sovereign, in accordance with this, delivers his charges and promulgates his announcements throughout the 4 quarters of the kingdom. Quote from Ritzema/Karcher. Below heaven possessing wind, coupling. The crown prince uses spreading out fate to command the 4 sides. Fate, Ming, is individual destiny, birth and death as limits of life, issue orders with authority, consult the gods. The ideogram, mouth and order, words with heavenly authority. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. Temptation has the significance of unexpectedly coming on. we see in it the magnetic line coming unexpectedly on the dynamic ones. Marriage is improper because one so symbolized should not be long associated with. When heaven and earth meet together as here represented, all the variety of natural things becomes displayed. When a dynamic line finds itself in the central and correct position, good government will nourish all under the sky. Great indeed is the significance of what has to be done at the time indicated by temptation. Leg. A single magnetic line enters at the bottom of the hexagram. This is the figure used to represent the time of year when light and heat begin to wane. In the divided line, we see the symbol of the inferior man beginning to insinuate himself into the government of the country. His influence, if unchecked, would go on to grow and fill the vacant seats with others like himself. The objective of the judgment is to arouse resistance to this evil influence. Temptation. Temptation is defined here as a sudden and causal meeting with something inferior. The divided line is seen as appearing all at once in the figure. The first line, magnetic in a dynamic place, becomes the symbol of a bold woman of more than questionable virtue who appears unexpectedly on the scene with the object of seducing all 5 of the dynamic male lines to herself. No one would contract a marriage with such a female, and every good servant of his country will repel the entrance onto government of every officer who can be so symbolized. On the first 2 sentences of the Confucian commentary, the Konghasi editors say, the magnetic line meets with or comes unexpectedly on the dynamic ones. The magnetic line, that is, plays the principal part. The case is like that of the minister who assumes the power of decision in place of the ruler, or of a hen crowing at sunrise. Is not the name of shameless boldness rightly applied to it? Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. Do not unite with an inferior element in your situation. Lead us not into temptation. The superior man formulates his code of conduct and abides by it. Wilhelm translates the 44th hexagram as coming to meet, and Blofeld gives it the rather startling subtitle of sexual intercourse. There is no doubt at all that the figure has an aura of illicit excitement associated with it, which I feel is best conveyed by R.L. Wing's title of temptation, though adultery might also be suitable. One sometimes receives this hexagram under dramatic circumstances, and it serves to dump cold water on a potentially volatile series of choices and their equally volatile consequences. When we consider the importance of the proper correlation of male and female lines in the I-ming, we see that the judgment in this hexagram can psychologically depict the temptation to an adulterous union of thought and feeling. Adultery is a very useful metaphor for understanding the principles of the work. It means union with anything which, in I-ming terms, is not a proper correlate. To adulterate something is to degrade a pure substance by the addition of an inferior ingredient. The image of a temptation to adulterate the work in this hexagram is therefore a warning in the strongest possible terms that you are vulnerable to some inferior choices. A quote from Swedenborg in Apocalypse Explained. Consequently, by marriages not only the earths but also the heavens are filled with inhabitants. The earth indeed may be filled with inhabitants by fornications and adulteries as well as by marriages, but not in heaven. The reason is that hell is from adulteries and heaven from marriages. When the procreations of the human race are effected through marriages in which the holy love of good and truth from the Lord reigns, then it is done on earth as in the heavens, and the kingdom of the Lord on earth corresponds to the kingdom of the Lord in the heavens. The concept of the hieros gamos, or holy marriage, is a ubiquitous archetype found in every tradition rooted in the perennial philosophy. If this marriage symbolizes a proper union or reunion of previously separated elements, then it follows that the opposite situation, a union of mismatched entities, would be symbolized by adultery. To recreate a primordial gestalt of perfection out of an exploded multiverse of mixed forces demands that all of the original pairs of opposites become properly matched correlates. Although any 2 opposite genders might feel a mutual attraction, there is really only one opposite which is an appropriate spouse. In the realm of human relationships, this is evoked in the concept of the soulmate. Esoterically speaking, every polarized force in the multiverse has its proper correlate. It follows that the work, in its largest conception, cannot be completed until each is reunited with each. A quote from the Gnostic Gospel of Philip. Indeed, every act of sexual intercourse which has occurred between those unlike one another is adultery. Members of a race usually have associated with those of like race. So spirit mingles with spirit, and thought consorts with thought, and light shares with light. If you are born a human being, it is the human being who will love you. If you become a spirit, it is the spirit which will be joined to you. If you become thought, it is thought which will mingle with you. If you become light, it is the light which will share with you. The point is important enough to bear repeating. Psycho-spiritually interpreted, sexual intercourse and marriage symbolize the possibility of a unification of forces. Conversely, union with an improper correlate means adulteration of the work. This is the esoteric meaning underlying the Hindu caste system. A quote from the Bhagavad Gita, 1:41. When unrighteousness overwhelms the family, O Krishna, the women of the family become corrupt. And when, O Krishna, the women are corrupt, there arises a mixing of castes. The mixing of castes is, in symbolism of the I-ming, the union of improper correlate forces. Women, as we have seen, usually symbolize the emotional and feeling aspects of the psyche. We readily recognize that the above quotation from the Bhagavad Gita accurately reflects the symbolism of the 44th hexagram, reiterating the great truth that when emotions make the choices, the unity of the psyche is compromised. And added notes in September 7th of 2010. Sometimes this hexagram is received in answers to queries related more to a fated karmic situation than anything normally regarded as temptation. In these cases, Ritsema/Karcher's expanded notes on the ideograms are useful guides. Gripped by impersonal forces, primal forces couple in the inner world, seeding enduring new forms. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of the encounter of primal energies. It emphasizes that seeing through your personal situation as the connection of objective forces is the adequate way to handle it. And now back to our primary hexagram 6, stress, to read our changing line 3, which again has the general context of an emerging identity facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. Our changing line again is our most focused point of our reading, puts a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself, takes precedence over all other elements. Changing line 3 in James Dekorne's Gnostic Book of Changes. Leg. The third line, magnetic, shows its subject keeping in the old place assigned for her support, and firmly correct. Perilous as the position is, there will be good fortune in the end. Should she perchance engage in the king's business, she will not claim the merit of achievement. Ritsema/Karcher, taking in ancient actualizing Tao, trial, adversity, completing significant, maybe adhering to kingly affairs without accomplishment. And to actualize Tao is the ability to follow the course traced by the ongoing process of the cosmos, linked with acquire, D, acquiring that which makes a being become what it is meant to be. And then of adversity is Li, danger, threatening, malevolent demon. It indicates a spirit or ghost that seeks revenge by inflicting suffering upon the living. Pacifying or exorcising such a spirit can have a healing effect. Slothnacy, eating old virtue, determination is dangerous. Someone follows the king's service without completion. Wu, living by the traditional virtue and being correct and firm will bring good fortune in the end. Should he enter into public service, he does not expect recognition of his success. Commentary. Confucius/leg, she confines herself to the support assigned to her of old. Thus, following those above, she will have good fortune. Wilhelm/Baines, to obey the one above brings good fortune. Blofeld, the good fortune will result from obedience to superiors, which stems from cherishing the ancient virtues. Ritzema/Karcher, adhering to the above significant indeed. Cleary, 2, living on past virtues is the luck of following the high. Wu, following those above him will be auspicious. Leg, here the line is magnetic in a dynamic place and thus unequal to the stress of the matter at hand. She withdraws from the arena, and even if forced into action, she will stay safely in the background. She keeps in the old place assigned for her support, literally means she eats her own virtue. That is, she nourishes herself on her own natural endowment and does not contend for more than that. Notes and paraphrases. Siu, the man lives on income received for services rendered. He recognizes that works really belonging to oneself cannot be taken away. He does not engage in perilous contests over property. Wing, keep a low profile. Stick to established methods and traditional virtues. Do not put yourself in a position of prominence, whatever you imagine to gain in prestige. Material possessions and status mean nothing now. Only your inner worth will be of value to you. Editor, ancient virtues suggest the principles of the work, or the archetype of the psyche as an integrated whole. Symbolically, to engage in the king's business is to undertake the work on behalf of the self. Note the similarity between this line and the third line of the hexagram number 2, the magnetic. A quote from Elizabeth Hayek in Initiation. If you want to be a good servant within the divine plan or salvation of the world, you must never forget that you do not live and work on your own strength. All power comes from God, and all powers you manifest come to you from your highest self, from God. He breaks down changing line 3 into one possible succinct definition. A, don't aspire beyond your proper place. Maintain a servant's humility, and though it may not be apparent now, your commitment to the work will eventually bear fruit. I like Hilary Barrett because she breaks this down pretty practically often. A lot of heady talk before in walking your path, creating your future. And she has some really good questions usually at the beginning of each of these. I would recommend, if you want to get into the I Ching, that this be a great first book to use. In fact, I've been reading all the really great introductions that simplify things really well from this book, the trigrams and hexagrams and all that stuff. What the trigrams are each. Hexagram 6, arguing. Key questions. What are you arguing for? If you can't win this one, what else can you do? Oracle. Arguing. There's truth and confidence, blocked. Vigilant and centered, good fortune. Ending, pitfall. Fruitful to see great people, fruitless to cross the great river. You argue for what you need, for sustenance or to be believed, or simply for justice, for you know in your bones that things are not as they should be. Yet no matter how deep and true your convictions, you find yourself frustrated, and your sense of being in resonance and connected with the world is choked off. It's important now to center yourself in vigilance, in a heart open and alert to all the potentials for change, so you stay poised and capable of responsive movement in any direction. To freeze into a combative, defiant posture, holding on to your sense of wrongness to the bitter end, would not resolve conflict, but only establish it in perpetuity. When frustrated and blocked, you need to see great people, those whose higher perspective enables them to see beyond the argument to a larger truth. Perhaps you can find that shift in perspective within yourself. Perhaps you need to consult with someone wiser who is outside the conflict. Meanwhile, it's fruitless to commit yourself further to your position out of sheer defiance. Image. Heaven joins with stream, contradictory movements, arguing. A noble one starting work plans how to begin. Water flows downhill away from heaven. Your inner momentum diverges from the immutable laws, pulled away by the flow of emotion. You're in dispute with how it is. This dissenting impulse inspires you to start work and take action. Arguing makes for much better beginnings than endings. In order to direct the inner momentum intelligently without worsening the conflict, a noble one thinks of heaven joining with the stream. He plans from the outset how to bring the emotional currents of commitment back into accord with absolute principles. Sequence. Arguing follows from hexagram 5, waiting. Drinking and eating naturally mean arguing. When our needs and appetites are involved, we will fight. And when we argue, need and the fear of lack probably motivate us. Hexagram 5 waits for what it needs. Hexagram 6 demands it. And then our secondary or supporting hexagram number 44, she calls coupling, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context, an influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you or your relationship to you and your relationship to it all. Key questions. What would be an adequate response to this new energy? How far could this change go? How far will you let it go? Oracle. Coupling. The woman is powerful. Do not take this woman. Coupling means meeting, and also a woman who gives birth to the heir, the powerful woman. She represents someone of either sex or something with a profound and mysterious power to attract you, to take over and to change everything. She moves you, re-energizes, and gives birth to new life. The oracle warns you not to take the woman, not to try to seize control of her, and not to marry her. Do not imagine that you can bring her under control, assimilate her into your life, and continue as before. Such a marriage cannot last. This woman has more power than any system where you might try to contain her. She might bring desires that undermine a well-balanced life, or an eruption of feeling into a realm of abstractions, or chance and irrationality to threaten a logical, ordered mind. Perhaps you will stand fast and resist this power's attraction. Perhaps you will embrace her briefly and let your life be transformed by the encounter, but you cannot take her or marry her. Image. Below heaven is the wind, coupling. The prince sends out mandates and commands to the four corners of the earth. The wind travels everywhere under heaven and penetrates every corner of the world. The prince receives the mandate, orders from heaven, and it penetrates to his core and travels through him. He cannot control or contain such power, but he can broadcast it to change his whole realm. Sequence. Coupling follows from hexagram 43, deciding. Breaking through must mean meeting, and so coupling follows. Coupling means meeting. Hexagram 43 broke through indecision and separated cleanly from all that did not belong. Now, whatever you excluded comes back to meet you and opens a space where unknowable possibilities can enter. Back to hexagram 6, our primary hexagram, to read our changing line 3, which is the most focused part of our reading. Puts a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself, and takes precedence over all other elements. Changing line 3 has the general context of an emerging identity facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. Changing line 3 of hexagram 6, arguing. Feeding on ancient power and virtue, constancy, danger, ending, good fortune. Maybe following a king's work without accomplishment. You feed yourself on power that comes from the past, maybe strong personal values or deep instinctual strengths or the qualities of ancient heroes. This is potent nourishment. The only question is how or where it might find a place in your life now. If you let it feed your energy for arguing and keep on trying to shape the world to fit with ancient virtue, you're likely to run into trouble and get hurt. It's better to allow the ancient story to be complete in itself, instead of fighting to realize it here and now. You can still incorporate it as an inner source of strength, far deeper and more powerful than mere righteous indignation, and then get on quietly with the business at hand. If that involves working towards an objective, you shouldn't expect great achievements or recognition. But when you are well nourished on ancient power and virtue, you won't need such things. We'll now turn to a chapter of the Tao Te Ching at random. 29. This is translated by Jiafu Fang and Jane English. Has pretty pictures in it, which you gotta love. Chapter 29 of the Tao Te Ching. Do you think you can take over the universe and improve it? I do not believe it can be done. The universe is sacred. You cannot improve it. If you try to change it, you will ruin it. If you try to hold it, you will lose it. So sometimes things are ahead and sometimes they are behind. Sometimes breathing is hard, sometimes it comes easily. Sometimes there is strength and sometimes weakness. Sometimes one is up and sometimes down. Therefore, the sage avoids extremes, excesses, and complacency.